Hi, welcome back to the GBS workshop. Today we're going to be having a look at the new roof that we've just had made. We have test fitted this to one of our cars, but this is going on the first customer car. The idea today is to run through what you get and a very basic fitting guide, some of the tools that you're going to need. So obviously it comes in its own little bag. That's ideal. This roof, the beauty of this is you can just take it on and off very, very quickly, stick it in your boot. You've got your nice bag to keep it in. We look at the roof itself, just fold it out. It's relatively lightweight. You've got a window at the rear, and then obviously it goes on top of there. We have just offered this up against the car and it does fit. Okay, so once you get your roof, it'll come with some parts to fit. So there's going to be some very basic tools required. I'll run through them just very quickly, but we are going to be riveting some pot rivets to the windscreen, which are here. You're going to need a 3.2, obviously you need a drill. You're going to need a tape measure, a ruler. One of the important bits is just making sure that we get the spacing correct, which we'll look at in just a second. The rivets that we install into the screen, they are a very low profile because obviously there's glass behind the screen itself. These are a shortened rivet that we provide in the kit. So if you do use a longer rivet, you are in danger of damaging the glass, so just be mindful of that. The other tools that we'll need, now we've got a riveter. We've also got a riv nut tool. So the straps that go at the back of the car, these themselves we are going to actually secure down with an M6 through existing holes, with some washers on there as well, which we'll look at shortly. But yeah, relatively straightforward. Pair of safety glasses, as we do, and masking tape. Okay, so let's offer it up to the car and see what it looks like. Okay, so we're just laying the back bit on first of all. You'll notice that we've got this section here that wraps around the roll bar. So if we start in the center, just make sure that's nice and snug. And then we've got another couple on either end. First time doing this, obviously a bit slower, but you do get quicker. Okay, and then that just folds this way. Okay, and then you see that we're going to have 4 straps. We're going to have 2 that follow the rear stays, 1 that follows the roll bar. Okay, so intents and purposes now, we're going to start at the front and then we'll take up the tension and everything at the back once we've fitted. So just doing initial testing for fitment. But yeah, as you can see, it's designed to fit. Okay. And like I say, once we've got the front fastened, we'll then put the rear down and that will tighten up and give us the tension that we need. So I've been looking at that, everything looks good. This stitch line here is following the center of the roll bar when that's in position, which is nice and taut. So next job is to take this off and we're going to measure that we've got the correct spacing for the actual fixings. Okay, so first thing we need to do is just establish the center line for the fixings. So we can actually drill this in situ as it is now and then use the holes when it's on the car starting from the center. But of course we need to understand fully where the center is for both this and the center on the frame of the car. So all I do is I put a couple of different marking points here, and I'm taking a measurement using the same gap here all the way across and basically keep going until I find the exact center line, and then I'm happy with that being the center. So I've got this last one to do. So I'll just start from there to there. That's 95. Okay. So based on that there, I'm quite happy that that is my center line. I'll just put that there. Okay, and then just to reference that, you should have the same gap there right to the very end of that, 45.6. Yeah, maybe just a tad that way, just there. Okay, so I'm happy that that is where my first one is going to be. I've just put a little mark there with the pen. Now, in terms of when these fixings, they're going to go centralised between these two lines here. So I always find it's a little tip to get this and put it bang in the centre, so, and then use that with a little crosshair and mark it in the centre, and that's where the first one wants to be. Okay, so the next phase that I've done here is, obviously we know our centre line. I've just took some calculations and worked out that we're going to use about 13 press studs across here. So I've divided the space that we had before the centre, and 80mm gives us a nice spacing, leaving us finishing here, and then these last two are going to be slightly closer together, which I'll show you in a second. But I've just put it on a bit of masking tape just to see that it works, and I'm quite happy that that's going to work. 80mm is a nice gap between the two. Obviously they are going to support the weight of the roof, but when they are in their position, by the nature of how they work, they don't want to pop off. But yeah, it's important that you make sure all your spacing and your gaps are the same. So I'm quite happy to do that. Now at this point, we can do one or two things. We could now start putting that back in there, and we could drill that first hole, which I think is what we're going to do. So we're going to drill all these now ready, so that when we start in the centre, we can pull it nice and tight and drill through and mark the screen where we want to go. So I'm just going to drill all these holes to this template. Okay, so I'm using a 3.2 drill bit here, and essentially I'm not going to fit them now, but what's going to happen is this is going to pass through here. They are a tight fit. It takes a bit of wiggling to get in, but there we go. Made that look easy, but sometimes it's not that easy. But essentially that's what they're going to look like. So you can see by us getting that in the centre there, we've got a nice gap there. So I'm going to basically drill all these. I'm not going to install these yet though. I'm going to install these once they're on the car. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can drill through the hole and mark the screen. I'm going to go 80mm, 160mm. So we're happy. Mark the. Okay. Okay, so I've drilled all these across here now. I'm really happy with those. For the end ones, where this wraps around the screen, you kind of need one very close to this edge, just to make sure that it don't ruffle up. So my measurement I've taken here is 20mm from the very edge there, and then another one which is 60mm. So you've got basically 20, 40, 20, 40, and then you've got an even gap. So I'm happy with those. And then we follow the same process again. Just lay this in between those two lines just to make sure that we get it in the centre. That one there, and then this one's a little bit bigger there. Okay. Okay, so that's all those drilled now. Now there is the other option of doing this is you could install these now if you so wished, and then obviously have them all set up. The little trick to doing that is then if you put masking tape on the screen very lightly and just put some force, a bit of pressure down, it does mark the masking tape. My personal preference is we just do one at a time, use that hole and drill through, mark the screen, make sure it's where we want to be, and then drill the screen, which I think was what we're going to do. Okay, so at this point you may need an extra pair of hands. So we've got it all in at the back, we're happy with that. We've got this line here. I have gone down and measured the centre of the screen. I've done that by taking a measurement from the very top of the pillar there and finding a centre point here, and again then just double check that it is the centre. And then by pulling this nice and taut on both sides, so we've got an even gap here which is about 10mm, we have actually come to that centre line, which is good news. Okay, so if you put your hand on here, you can feel the top of the frame. So this seam edge here needs to follow the top of the frame, and then it start coming down at an angle here, which is absolutely perfect at the minute. And when we put some tension on here, it's going to be spot on. So if I can get my colleague just to put his finger there, just there. Now at this point we're going to go through here Okay, so we're just going to mark the glass. Okay, mark the frame, sorry. Just gonna, yeah, we'll start that again. Just going to mark the frame, and then we'll just drill this out. Okay. Okay, so we've held that in position, we've drilled it. It's actually right about in the centre of the frame. Now, in an ideal world, it wants to be in the centre or maybe just a little bit higher. And then what we're going to be doing is installing this in here. Now, obviously, these are a little bit of a tight fit, but where it is at the moment in time, you're going to get a slight little bit of an overhang here and a little bit of overhang there. That's perfectly normal, but that looks in perfect position. So I'm just going to get my riveter. And you'll see that the rivet that we're using is quite shallow. And that's because, obviously, when you drill into here, and I'll show you on the next one, you're going to hit the glass at some point, so you've got to take it very, very steady. But what happens is, because that's got that there, the only depth of the rivet, and then when you pull against the rivet, it works perfectly fine. So here's one we prepared earlier. So just gently wiggle the rivet in. Okay, and then really nice and slowly. Okay, and we're using blackhead rivet. There we go, perfect. Place now, as we work down it, I'm going to install this back in here. Like I said, they are a bit tight. Sometimes you've got to get your fingernails, get a good push. There we go. And then this back bit goes on there. Now the idea with this tool is it rolls the edges over. So make sure it's set right. Okay, and you can see what it does there. It rolls the edges over, and that's a nice fit. Just so it's got just enough to rotate. Perfect. Okay, so we're now just going to pull that over, clip that into place. First one done, 12 to go. So, yep, we're now going to work this way and kind of work that way as we go across, just making sure that we're all in the same place as we run along here and that we're all nice and consistent. At the moment in time, we're not worried about this flexibility because we've got some leeway in the straps at the back. Okay, so we're just going to work. Yep, so we've got 5 in now, working across really nicely. Just want to make sure that we're fully clear on this drilling process. Obviously, it's a 3.2 drill bit, and you know the whole idea is making sure that we're happy with that there. And we're literally just going to mark the frame, and then you can see there's a small mark just there. I've actually done this twice to show you. So we want to be in between those two little marks. If for whatever reason you're not in the centre, then you might just want to adjust it so it's in the centre. But so I'm going to go between them 2 marks there. I'm going to try. Okay. And because there's glass behind here, it's just a case of taking your time and going really slowly. You will get to the glass and you'll feel the glass. As long as you're not applying any pressure, you just want to be moving out this aluminium. Now obviously if you get rid of that as you're doing it, you don't want it scratching anything. Okay, so you can see there, I am probably about that much into which is the same as the rivet. But if we were to look in there, that will be glass that we're up against. Now the other thing that we do when we're here is you will get some aluminium fall in here. If you want to put a sheet or some cover on your car, I mean we've got an airline that just blows it out of the way, which works perfectly fine. But yeah, you want to avoid this going on your paintwork ideally. So you know, if you've not got an airline, I suggest you do something there. Nice and flat on there. Just making sure that that's going to be in the centre there, which it is. Get your drill. Now the key with this is not to rush, so that one there, perhaps a little bit higher than the rest, so I'm just going to adjust that so that we're a little bit lower, just so that we get a nice uniform. And again here I'm supporting the back of the glass, you know, don't put all your force on the drill. Make sure you're supporting the back of the glass, and nice and steady. And like I said, just get rid of this aluminium. And you can hear there the difference. That's actually on the glass. I'm not putting too much force on. I've done this several times, so I am kind of experienced. But if you were to go full whack, there's a good chance that you could damage the glass. You ready? Yep. Yeah, so just a word of warning. Obviously, we rivet quite a lot, so we're used to it. But if you're not familiar with a rivet tool, you know, it's quite prudent that you kind of get used to how they work. Obviously, when it pops and it pops the rivet, there's quite a lot of force that rebounds back through it. Now, obviously, you don't want to be scratching your screen or obviously your frame or anything. But yeah, just take your time, just squeeze it nicely. All I'm doing there is I'm putting some pressure here. So as soon as it pops, I'm actually going to pull it back because I don't want any force going that way. And I'm kind of putting my hand to protect everything. And you see how when it popped, I was pulling back. And that way it just prevents it scratching anything. If you just squeeze it there and not support it, there's a chance that it could slip the car. But if you're not, then just try and don some blank bit of aluminium until you kind of get used to how they work. The last thing you want to do is do all this and get to your last one and then scratch your wind frame. The other point to note is you must have a riveter that's got this tapered edge here. Some cheaper riveters, they have a square edge here, and the riveter doesn't fit inside this gap. If that's the case, you might want to make a small revision to your riveter where you take this off and just file that so it's got like this dome effect. I say it must fit inside there. So the very cheap riveters don't, and they'll never pull the rivet straight. And to be fair, you don't want to be drilling them out. You want that old size to stay. So that's something that's quite important. Okay, so the front's all done. Happy with that, all works perfectly fine. I'll take this off now. You know, we've got an even gap here to here, which is what you want to be looking to achieve. Okay, that's following the line of that perfectly fine. And the beauty of that is if you were to try and tug at this, because they're at such an angle, they are actually quite hard to take off. So what you'll find is when you do remove the roof, it's kind of unbolt it from the back, bring it forward and then let these clip off. Otherwise you'll put excessive wear on these. But okay, now to the back. Okay, so when it comes to the rear, just make sure that all this is fitting nice and neatly, which it is. We're now going to come on to securing the straps. Now the straps are not going to be strong enough on a press stud, so they do need to be actually bolted down. These are a little bit long at the moment in time. These are going to get shortened. But essentially what we're looking to do here is we're going to have to remove the boot cover when we get up here as well. But effectively we're going to mount this strap so that it picks up the bar of the steel through here as well as this. But what we do have to do, if you just drill this nylon, it frays. So what we found is if we get a drill bit and get it really, really hot, it kind of sears the actual nylon and it creates a nice hole, and it's nice and strong. Obviously then we're going to use a kind of penny washer to secure that in place as well. So we're going to put one there and one there. Drill through. And when we come around to the side bit, it's going to be the same process, but we're going to try and be quite clever in the fact that we're going to try and tuck this through here, so that's mounted underneath. So we're going to open that up, thread that through there, and do the same thing where we mount a riv nut into the actual chassis itself with a button head that'll get covered up by this. Then this is going to pop through here. It's a little bit tight to get through. You kind of need a couple of pair of hands, or just something just to pry that back and push that through. In order to get the hole, we've tried various different ways. I wouldn't recommend drilling the hole. We're cheating here with a soldering iron, but it kind of melts the hole and it doesn't fray. So yeah, we've done that on that as well, look. And we're going to put an M6 through there, but it kind of seals the edge. It's quite nice. So in your kit, these are not attached to your straps. So if you're wondering how these work, have a look at that. It's took us a few attempts, to be honest, to work it out. But essentially it's coming up and back through. Just need to make sure you get this buttle the right way around. It's got that goes on the back and that on the front. And then that allows it to pull up, but then be really tight there, but you can tension it up. And then if you want to release it, just pull that down. Okay, so we're going to follow the roll bar halfway between the two stays. Where we are at the moment in time, it's going to go onto a little bit of trim, but that's fine. And I'm just going to mark it, and I'm just going to use a 3.2, and then we'll take it out to bigger. Now bearing in mind we're going through some steel work here. As you get to this point, be mindful that the drill's going to jump in, so we don't want to damage the paint. Like that. So just get ready to pull back as I did, and then blow that out of the way. Okay, that's spot on. So we'll take that out to 6mm now. So I'm just going to tighten this up. Now obviously if you want to put black fixings on here, you know, it's probably advisable. But for intents of this video, okay. And then you get to the point where you don't want to be ruffling that round, so I'm going to start tightening the bottom. Okay. And the reason we put a penny washer in is just to spread the load so that we're not. Okay. And that's just nice and nipped up. Okay, and then let's just check what we've got going on here. So when the boot cover's back on, we've kind of got this following that now. Perfect. But yeah, obviously if you put a black fixing in there, that would completely hide that. So we can do the same on both these two. So this here, it's kind of a little bit delicate. On the edge of the carbon, you've got a piece of box section that runs here. So you want to be aiming for the box section, because we're going to install a riv nut in here, because obviously we can't get to the other side of it. So again, I'm going to start with a little pilot hole. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Okay, like I say, it takes some drilling that, because you're going through the steel, which is good. I'm just going to work my way up. We are going to drill this out to 9.2 for the riv nut. Okay, so we have an option now. We can either install a countersunk riv nut, or we can countersunk the riv nut itself. So if you've not got a countersunk riv nut, you could always take the piece of aluminium out to 13mm, and the riv nut will sit in there. It's a little bit difficult to get in with the tool if you do that, so I think we're going to put a countersunk riv nut in here. So we're just going to countersunk this slightly. Okay, so I'm just putting a nice countersunk on here. If you've not got one of these tools, then obviously a 13-14mm drill bit will kind of achieve the same thing. Yeah, so countersunk. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Look at that level. That's perfect, that. I'm happy with that. And then just get a track. There we go. Okay, so now installing the riv nut. I'm sure you all know how to install a riv nut. We're going to do this with a hand riv nut tool, because I guess a lot of you guys have not got a fancy machine like we have. Because we're going to be going through aluminium and steel, it's going to take quite a lot of force to do this. Okay. Here we go. There's quite a lot of force. And then just tighten it back up. Yeah. Let's tighten that. Done the job. Yep, that's nice and pulled up. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. Just the result we're after. So again, I'm going to put a penny washer on there. It's going to stand slightly proud because of the nut, obviously, but at least we've got the countersunk in there, which is helping. Okay, just putting it in by hand, just feeling that it's nice. Then got my little. That's nice and tight. Yeah, happy with that. So, yep, that still fits on there, perfect. Okay. And then we've got a little bit of freedom there. Yep, spot on. And there. And then nice and tight. You pull that nice and tight there. I'll pull that down slightly. Yep. And then spot on. So then we just replicate what we've done here and here on both sides. We'll come back to that in just a second when we've done that. We'll tension it all up. And then the next job is we just need to cut these down. So it's all fitted now. The last job is just a case of shortening these straps. And this is down to personal preference really. What we've been doing is shortening them so that you can still get your hand on them and grab them, but doing them short enough so that you can then tuck back through here and then pop through there. Now, obviously these side ones I've done exactly the same. I've shortened them, and all I've done is literally got it to where I want it, straight line with the scissors, and then the leading edge, I've already done this one, but basically just getting a lighter on there, getting the nylon hot, and then just putting a nice square edge on, like that, and that stops it from fraying. And then we're just pushing that back down there. Just out of the way, stop it flapping. But yeah, exactly the same on the back. Because they're quite taut, I mean, I'd be inclined to shorten them a little bit. So I think we'll have a go. We'll probably go to about there. Just nice and straight, follow the lines that's on there. And then you'll see that this wants to fray. So if you just get some heat on there, and just keep working that edge, it rolls back on itself. Just bear in mind it does get quite hot. And then just put it up against the square edge there. It's quite hot. And that's just seal the edge, that'll not fray. And then that can just tuck there now. Perfect. Okay, so it's all fitted, it's gone together really nicely. We've got a nice tight fit. You know, just bear in mind, obviously at high speed, you are going to get a bit of movement. That's perfectly the same on any of these cars fitted with this type of roof. But you'll see that it's designed in such a way that the door also takes, keeps that stretch, but obviously to get in, you can just literally fold that back to open the door. Yeah, you got a little bit less headroom to get in, but obviously again, that's the same for all these roofs. And then just closing the door. Pretty straightforward. Now obviously when you come to remove it, obviously undo and loosen the straps at the rear and undo the Velcro here, let it tilt forward, then pull it off on these. Don't try and pull these off first. The design of them is such a way that yeah, you're going to force them and you potentially could break them.